Something very, very strange is afoot in the land down under, where women roar and men apparently whimper. As we are going to talk about Collective Shout, the non-profit feminist organization, sex negative, tough organization, that came out of literally nowhere and upended everything in a week's time. Something very odd is afoot here, and there is no way that any of this could possibly have happened unless they've got some very large and very powerful shadowy backers. And so today, we're going to have a look at why I believe this to be the case, some of Collective Shout's financials, how they don't add up as well, and we're going to speculate as to exactly who these shadowy figures are near the end of the video. But, starting out here, Collective Shout is a much bigger player than we thought, is a thing I tweeted quite recently, due to a Vice article. So, there was a Vice article posted that made some interesting allegations. Now, this is largely a bit of a left-wing cope piece, in my opinion, trying to go through a series of mental gymnastics as to why Collective Shout is not a left-wing feminist organization at all, but rather a conservative female supremacist organization. Yeah, we'll get back to that later, but something rather amusing then happened. You see, the article was taken down virtually immediately. Okay, that's very, very unusual. Vice is a progressive site. It's left-wing. It's the one doing the censorship, not the ones getting censored. Well, the article writer then says Vice's owner, Savage Venture, has requested the removal of my Collective Shout articles. This due to concerns about a controversial subject matter, not journalistic complaints. Okay. Right. This is even weirder. So, Anna Valence is a classic they-them and no friend of ours by any stretch of the imagination, who's currently primarily attempting to infiltrate herself into the VTuber community in order to make it more progressive, and occasionally trying to shame some of them by making wild accusations that Pipkin Pikpa almost caused a school shooting, and so on. Again, Anna Valence is no friend of ours, and some people are celebrating this, and I understand why, but think about what happened here, right? Anna Valence, a classic they-them, with all of the shields and protections of the progressive class, who has gotten into hot water again and again and again, almost getting Vice sued repeatedly and creating assloads of controversial content, survived all of that with no consequences. Vice didn't take down any of her other articles, and they certainly didn't fire her, but the moment she touches this organization, Yito Cheeto immediately. That is an extreme anomaly right there. Now, as I mentioned, this has become a little bit of a left-wing conspiracy theory as well, that you see, it's actually the conservatives that are doing this, not the progressives. This is obviously nonsense. The latest wave of Steam censorship is due to influence from large puritanical Christian conservative groups with way too much money and payment processors listening to them. Come on now. Come on now. Are we going to argue that Vice is listening to Christian conservatives now? The artist photographed the naked strangers he met on hookup apps, Vice. The LA is paradise, Vice. The blaming YouTubers for almost shootings, Vice. The they-them employing Vice. No, of course not. This is not conservatives in any stretch of the imagination. What this is puritanism, which happens on both sides. I did an entire long-ass video talking about this very subject and pornography, adult entertainment. I highly recommend you actually watch that video because, although I am a somewhat biased individual here, I think it lays out exactly why this happens very effectively and very well, and in a reasonable time slot too. See, The reason why adult entertainment is our canary down the coal mine of censorship is because it gets attacked from the left and the right. It is the single easiest target when it comes to any of this. It has been attempted to be censored by right-wing organizations, by left-wing organizations, by pretty much literally everyone, often using exceedingly dishonest means to do so as well. And so when there are arguments made like this, Nukos, they advocate against same-sex marriage, they want to ban sex toys, they advocate for abstinence-only sex education, their medical claims are often false, unsupported, or highly misleading, they are an anti-LGBTQIA+ organization. When they say that they are allied with Collective Shout, which is shown in the Anna Valens article, this is correct. As in the collectivist organization, the conservative organization, or puritanical more correctly, align themselves with a group they seem as effective in order to ban pornography, a common goal of all Puritans on the left and the right, and again, why we must deny both sides on it. So then, as for the Collective Shout themselves, they are most assuredly so not a conservative organization. They are sex-negative feminists. They are female supremacists who define anything that goes against women as violence, as we saw in the last video I did on this, where they argued in a petition to the United Nations that porn, in general, all porn, is violence against women. But where did this organization come from, and how on God's good earth does it have so much power? Well, I popped by the Australian government's Charities and Non-Profit Commissions to have a look a bit into this. This is a relatively old organization. It was initially created in about 2008-2009 and was officially registered, having finally gotten some serious income, in 2013. So they've been going for well over a decade now. However, during all of this time, they have not been particularly successful in the slightest. According to the latest financial reviews, and these are a bit old by now, they raised $389,000 in donations and bequests, and a further $69,000 in revenue from goods or services. Now, they don't seem to actually be offering any goods as far as I could see on their website, so I'm presuming these are diversity services, which were offered during the time when feminism was the leading edge of left-wingism before it was largely outcompeted by the progressives. But as you can see, this is not inconsiderable by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not massive. And this has been the trend for several years now, as we can see through their official financial documents. But I also showed you in the last video this here from Rocket Research, alleging a revenue of $6.4 million. Now, couple of things. First and foremost, the actual documentation for the income of this organization for 2025 is not available yet because, well, we're not there yet in the financial year. Secondly, Rocket Reach is a data scraper. So this is not 100% guaranteed accurate by any stretch of the imagination, but that is an enormous discrepancy. From like 300,000-400,000 to 6.4 million. Now, if they missed the mark by 2 or 3 or 4 times, I'd get it, I'd understand it. It's the usual social blade metrics, which are usually wildly misleading, as most of these companies only have access to kind of surface-level information, right? And so often either massively underestimate or overestimate the targets that they're trying to analyze. But 6.4 million? This isn't so much an error as it is shooting for the moon and ending up in orbit around Pluto, the dog. It might simply be that Rocket Reach is wildly off point, entirely possible, but this would explain why an organization with very little in the way of actual reach and with a habit of lying massively might be able to have such an effect. So this is one of the people who are working on Collective Shout, their co-founder, Melinda Tankard-Reist here. Her entire career is basically being a professional feminist and charging people to be one. She's not particularly hiccups, popular, as you can see here, and we all watched last video how they are happy to lie, amongst other things, arguing that the games removed from Steam showed violence or sexual abuse against children, which again, extraordinarily, exceptionally unlikely, next to impossible, as Steam has a very harsh limit against this. They are very, very anal and very careful about avoiding this. So again, Collective Shout virtually certainly lies their ass off on a regular basis, meaning that their financial information might also be potentially a pinch misleading, explaining this massive discrepancy here. Including things like this. You are morally bankrupt and destroying civilization. How dare you say gamers getting off on sexual torture of women and kids make us violent? Also in my inbox this morning. So this is an email she claims to have received. You fucked with gamers, now we are going to rape you. You are going to be raped and killed. You stupid, can't say that one, YouTube woman. From rape and kill stupid whore women at rapeallwomen.com. Yeah, this is a real email. I'm completely convinced this is a real email. I see no reason why I should ever doubt that this is a real email. That's not that's not overblown in the slightest, not at all. It's not hitting the point of parody and swooping on into the cosmos by any stretch of the imagination. No, this is totally real, so for real, yo. Especially as, you know, we have no long and proven track record of Collective Shout massaging the truth aggressively, or feminists doing the same. So we should totally accept and buy this, no doubt whatsoever. Now, besides a 10,000 follower Twitter account, which is less than half of my Twitter account, I literally never practically use. That is weird, but what about their website? Perhaps the website is the main source of all of this. The website is where they get their $500,000 to $6.4 million in revenue, so it's got to be a huge hub of activity, right? 1,000 visitors in a month. And I'd like to point out that probably about half of those are YouTubers right now, looking up Collective Shout in complete and utter bafflement at what the hell is this? Where did it come from? How come nobody ever heard of this? People from Australia have never heard of this. People who have been studying feminism for the last 10 years have never heard of this. Even the Australian government appears to haven't heard of this because, well, here's the income, right? Other revenue from governments, nothing. So they're not even getting governmental funding, which tends to be one of the first things that feminist organizations ask for: public money. And hey, raising $400,000 of 1,000 organic traffic hits a month, that's pretty impressive in and of itself. God, what would that even be? All right, let's say $300,000, right? Divided over 12,000 hits a year. So that's $25 in donations per person visiting their website. That's pretty damn good. Especially that's if we're ignoring the 6.4 million potential number right there. Again, something is very, very suspicious here. And then, of course, we come to the letter-writing campaign itself. So, Collective Shout creates an email campaign to Visa, to MasterCard, to all of these bigger companies, right? And they create a link, and they add in the usual emotional blackmail language, utterly and completely devoid of actual reality or truth, alleging that Steam is happily profiting of child abuse video games, that this is indeed a core part of their business model, and not something that a member of Collective Shout must have gone well out of their way to actually acquire and find. So, We had an example of this a few years ago. When GW did their usual nonsense, I started an email campaign to Games Workshop. I know for a fact that campaign generated, at the very least, several hundred emails. Probably several thousand emails, as I also heard from a person working within GW that we crashed their servers for a while there. Indeed, at the same time that I was informed about this, their website was down. So yeah, I attribute a fair degree of charitability and believability to that claim. What did GW do? They threw us a bare-boned crumbs about something that they wouldn't hire based on politics. That was all. So several thousand emails, to the point of taking down an email server, elicits absolutely no response from a company from the customer base that they are relying upon, from their direct consumers. Meanwhile, a letter-writing campaign from a site with less than 1,000 people visiting it a month manages to not only reach Visa and MasterCard without being instantly shredded and thrown in the dump somewhere, but within a week, as they posted their victory message 8 days after the original email campaign started, within a week, these companies that manage, trillions of dollars of assets probably, that service vast, enormous, mind-boggling quantities of money on a day-to-day basis, not only did they receive the email, read it, uncritically believe it, but they escalated it to the point of forcing Steam to bend the knee within 8 days. Not even 8 business days. So this probably happened in 5 days or less. We are supposed to believe this? Not a chance in hell. Not a chance whatsoever. This is obviously not something that Collective Shout managed on their own. They've been around for a decade and have achieved absolutely nothing, and then all of this instantly. There is massive discrepancy in their funding. There is massive discrepancy in their reach. They are a group that has very clearly massaged the truth on multiple occasions, including making very, very difficult to believe claims. So who then could possibly be behind all of this? Now, my personal theory is that this might actually be the payment processors themselves, rather than a specific shadowy organization. I don't think it's a government, because actually, usually when the government comes knocking, a company's first instinct is to resist, unless it's something really high up, like when Facebook got visited by the FBI, for example. That's one of those things you don't really question, at the very least not at first blush, but normally, when a government comes knocking, the companies get very, very uncooperative, because they expect that the government is going to start fucking with their business models. I don't think it's the government. It could be some very, very wealthy people, possibly. Now, which side again has the most wealthy activists? It sure as hell isn't the right wing. And again, this idea that this was conservative, puritanical Christian groups with way too much money. Where the fuck are they? Genuine question, where are these organizations and what are they achieving? In fact, overwhelmingly, like literally here, it's like the 90s satanic panic all over again. The only example we have of this kind of conservative, puritanical cancel culture, although it is real, is indeed from the 90s. This again makes no sense. An organization powerful enough to get Vice, a very progressive company, to Yito Cheeto a they-them at the drop of a hat. This is not just having money, this is access to processing money. This isn't a rich guy money, this is the bank money. right here. And the payment processors have been attempting to crack down on adult entertainment now for years and years. They've been doing it in Japan, they've been doing it in the West, and usually they try to do so with some sort of excuse in mind. They'll come up with some kid that cries wolf somewhere, no matter how obscure, no matter how tiny, no matter how misleading it might be, but they'll use any excuse to try and do this because they view it as a negative. Again, for the exact reason I talked about in my video on this. Left and right both love to attack adult entertainment because it is easy. It is something that both sides extremists know that they can score easy points off attacking with a group of people who don't understand that this will inevitably lead to censorship. Groups both on the left and right. See, this is again the dangerous part. The average normie, if you tell him, oh, but we're gonna ban rape porn, the average normie is gonna go, oh, Jesus Christ, rape porn? That's fucking terrible. Oh yeah, and it features children. Whoa, my God, ban it immediately. They're not going to question, they're not going to ask for sources, and they're not going to look any deeper, because this is an immediate moral reaction. You are immediately loathing the very idea of this existing and being commonly accessible, and the idea of this being on Steam even more so. Thus, it is very useful to attack, as it gains you power and prestige. This in turn means that payment processors who can be legitimately accused of monetizing the pornographic content will also look at it as a liability. They would much rather benefit from everything else than this. They are at the point where they earn so much money, where they're so large, where they've got a de facto monopoly on the transference of cash in the modern world, a monopoly that will only increase as we become more and more dependent on digital currency, that they don't care. It is irrelevant to them if they get some negative backlash due to the censorship of it. They don't give a shit. They've already got their excuse. They just want to get rid of it. This is why, also, that the only solution for any of this is regulations on the payment processors. Going after collective shout, as fun as it is, and as much as we should do it, to shame and blame any censors regardless of their political leanings, the payment processors are the real targets here. And the only ones who can enforce their will upon them are the governments. We can't cancel a payment processor. We can't simply refuse to use Visa anymore because most of our society is based on it. We can't go to Steam and say, oh, we're not going to buy your products unless you use payment processors. The core of their entire site's monetization system. We could argue that they should create their own, and Steam absolutely should, but again, this is too closely tied to how we transfer money, which is sort of kind of important in modern day society, to be dealt with by us. Instead, there needs to be regulations on them. Payment processors need to be forced to be, in essence, utilities. You cannot be denied access to a bank. You cannot be denied access to a payment processor. The payment processor is simply not allowed to refuse. They cannot withhold services. That should be the regulation. You are now a part of our economy. You are now part of our daily life that is indispensable. You cannot live in the modern world without access to some sort of payment processing online. Hell, we're only a few decades away before you probably can't purchase groceries or pay your electricity bill without access to some sort of electronic portal to do this. As how many people are going to the bank these days to pay their bills and so on? Payment processors want to become banks. They should be treated in the same way, if not indeed even harsher, because they are even more indispensable. And again, as much as I dislike the idea of continuing regulation, and the inherent danger of governmental overreach in these cases, the only entity more powerful indeed than the payment processors are the governments. Regulation is the only solution to this. Regulatory enforced bans on censorship via refusing a payment processor to deny their services to anyone regardless of what they're peddling, save of course straight up criminal content. If you can actually prove that there is a child molestation game on Steam, then fair play, take it down, but we are not going to use the feminist definition of this, because as Collective Shout have proven, it is wildly misleading, and they are willing and able to come up with many interesting things to justify the accusation. So, that at least is my theory. Please do let me know what you think of it, and, tell me in the comment section down below, both because I'm interested and because that's the only way we get any traction on videos these days. If you like, comment, and subscribe. I hate saying that, but it's now a necessity for simple survival, so get used to it. Till next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.